Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to this briefing by the Financing for Sustainable Development Office. We'll start now, and we'll ask our director, Shari Spiegel, who's joining us remotely from Doha, to open this briefing. So, Shari, over to you.
For the Doha for the World Social Summit. And really want to welcome all the delegates and stakeholders in the room and online. And thank you all for joining this informal dialogue on FFD4 follow-up. We've had these informal dialogues for the past years, really since the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, but this one takes on a special meaning, coming that it's after the FFD4 in Sevilla. So we are really pleased to really have a wide variety of stakeholders joining the call. And I also just want to note that we'll make a recording of the dialogue available online for anyone who's not able to join. The outcome of FFD4, the Sevilla Commitment, establishes a follow-up, strengthens the follow-up process for FFD at the global, regional, and national level. So it has specific actions on all levels. Our office, the Financing for Sustainable Development Office of UN DESA, leads the system-wide coordination of follow-up. And as always, since Monterey, we do this with the support of the 5 major institutional stakeholders of the FFD process. That's the World Bank, the IMF, WTO, UNCTAD, and UNDP. And then since Addis, as well as with the rest of the Interagency Task Force on Financing for Development, which is now around 65 members and growing. We've had interest most recently from many of the multilateral MDBs, the regional multilateral development banks, as well as the Finance and Commons Summit after Sevilla to join the task force as well. So at the global level, as you know, we have the FFD Forum, and there are also a series of new ECOSOC meetings that were established in the outcome document. So in the past, we already had several FFD ECOSOC meetings, including the special meeting on tax matters, as well as the Development Cooperation Forum. But the outcome document for the Sevilla Commitment also establishes meetings on credit ratings, as well as financial integrity, and also ties all of these meetings together to make them speak to each other more, and to bring this all in as one process where all of the meetings feed into each other and ultimately feed into the FFD Forum. In addition, the idea is to have a new review cycle that will inform both the analytical and intergovernmental work. That will be a biennial, meaning not that it's every other year, but that 4 of the chapters are focused on in the FFD outcome every other year, so that this will give a chance both to have more in-depth analysis in the IATF, but also that can enhance the depth of the outcome negotiations and ECOSOC discussions. So within the IATF, they're also working on monitoring progress and challenges in implementing the Sevilla Commitment. And my team is already working with all of the stakeholders to produce the 2026 FSDR with the task force, and they're going to talk about that in a few minutes in more detail. At the regional level, the regional economic commissions will lead on the regional follow-up process. And again, the goal is to bring the regional voices more directly into the FFD process and to create one holistic process, follow-up process. And several of the RECs are thinking of doing that through their regional forums on sustainable development. And again, we are already working with the RECs on thinking through how we can together work to strengthen this process. Then on the national level, in paragraph 65D, it puts forward a global network. So DESA will coordinate a global network of FFD national focal points from finance and other relevant ministries, called for in the Sevilla Commitment, with the goal of bringing this together by the FFD Forum in 2026. So we have these 3 different levels. And in addition, the official process on FFD follow-up will be complemented by efforts to monitor and follow up on the 130-plus voluntary initiatives in the Sevilla Platform for Action. So colleagues are also working on that follow-up process as well. So my colleagues will update you on all of these topics in just 1 minute, but In the presentation, you'll be able to see an overall timeline on the official meetings, events, and processes. But I just want to quickly make a few comments on debt because we know the Sevilla Commitment has transformative actions across 7 different action areas, as you know, and they are all important, but we are also aware that there's very strong interest in debt in particular, and interest from many stakeholders in the agreements on debt and debt sustainability. So, as you know, there are 4 different areas under debt. One is crisis prevention, one is the cost of borrowing, the third is the debt architecture for restructuring, the debt restructuring architecture, and the fourth is issues related to debt sustainability analysis and other types of credit evaluations. The agreed actions on debt really are going to involve many actors, including member states, the United Nations, other international organizations, and many stakeholders. The UN is going to be leading on a few of those items, and primarily us and DESA working together with UNCTAD, and my colleagues will also brief you and update you on these in a few minutes. So I just want to finally just note that it's important to emphasize that the Sevilla Commitment is an agreement of member states. Our role as a Secretariat is to support member states, to monitor and report on progress, and support member states through analytical work, analysis, and support for the new existing and the new meetings at ECOSOC and then also in the General Assembly. And this will include, of course, the strengthened FFD Forum, also a strengthened SDG investment fair. Oh, excuse me, my phone is ringing. Well, I'm almost done. And what I'm going to do quickly with my phone ringing is pass the floor to Mariangela Paralancourt, the Chief of the Strategic Engagement Policy, to start. And I'm going to mute very quickly. Mariangela, are you able to start?
Are you talking about me?
No, I was going to give the floor to Mariangela Paralancourt.
Yes,
the Chief of the Strategic Engagement and Policy Integration Branch in FSDO, to talk about the Financing for Development Forum, the ECOSOC special meetings, and the new network of focal points. And apologies, the phone in the room rang and I didn't know who it was. But anyway, over to you, Mariangela.
Thank you so much. My mic was not working before, so that's why I couldn't start immediately. So we went already through the roadmap. If we put it again on top, I can talk to you a little bit quickly. So we are going to have a very integrated roadmap going forward. Integrated in the sense that all stakeholders will be engaged in the whole year, all the discussions. So we're planning to have a town hall with civil society late this year or early next year. In February, we will have the ECOSOC consultations with the BWIs that we know happen with the ECOSOC Bureau and the bureaus and the boards of the bank and the fund. The advanced unedited version of the FSDR will come out around the 28th of February. And immediately after, there would be the presentations about all the topics. And also, the group of friends of Monterrey are planning a retreat that will take place in March. Then we will have the normal, every year, a special meeting on tax on 27 March. And the new ECOSOC special meeting on credit rating agencies. Immediately after, we will have the launch of the FSDR. We will have the forum, the new forum, revived forum, that will have not only the intergovernmental agreed conditions and recommendations, but also the new high-level meeting with the WTO and UNCTAD, and a planned meeting, first meeting of the network of all focal points, that we will talk a little bit more about that. We will have the SDG investment fair, and after that, in May, we will have a special meeting on financial integrity. All of this, we hope to have the resources to do all of this, because we're really excited to really have a very important year on implementation. And then we will have the Secretary General report on FFD that feeds with other reports on the second committee negotiations. So Shari already went through the global, national, and regional. So I'll just go straight to the forum. Sorry. Okay. I can talk about this. So on the global level, as you know, we have the Interagency Task Force on Financing for Development. Oh, too fast. All right. So we have your mandate to change the FFD forum to really have a biennial cycle that allow us to review in depth 4 areas. The global financial framework will be every year. That one is there. And the other areas that we have this year are the international financial architecture and systemic issues, the international trade as an engine for development, domestic and international private business and finance, and data monitoring and follow-up. Then we will have, of course, also the special high-level meetings that I mentioned, and there will be other kind of perspectives that will come that will feed into how we structure, the President of ECOSOC structures the forum program. And this will include, as always, the presentation of the Financing for Sustainable Development report that DESA does. We will bring regional perspectives from the regional commissions and other regional perspectives. As countries have been invited to report voluntarily, so that can also come in the program. There was a mandated an update by the working group on principles and responsible sovereign borrowing and lending principles. And then, obviously, the forum is a space in which we have emerging issues. It would be a space to discuss them. In parallel, we will have the SDG Investment Fair that we have had for a few years now, since 2018-19. As mentioned by Shari, we are revamping it to make it wider in terms of being a space for interlocution of all the actors that work on SDG investment, public, private, multilateral. And then we will have, hopefully, the meeting for the National Focal Point Network. We would have the Sevilla Platform of Action would be updates, voluntary updates, obviously, and, as you know, many side events. So this is what we are planning for the forum, and we're planning to do it as flexible as we can. We're planning to consider what kind of sessions are more important for the first day, if we have Davos style, if we have ministerial the first day. All these discussions will come with the President of ECOSOC, but we hope it's going to be a really energizing forum, and with your support, I'm sure it will be. So, as I mentioned, and this slide has too much information, but civil society, we want to engage with stakeholders and all along the year. So the idea is that we are starting right now with this informal dialogue today to tell you what our plans. Then we have, in November, we have the deadline to express interest to contribute to the UN Tax Committee work streams. We then have, in December, we have the deadline for the call for inputs that has already been circulated to everyone, to stakeholders, to contribute to the FSDR. And we have the inputs also for the Convention on International Tax Cooperation to contribute to the documents. We are planning also to have, in other fora from ECOSOC, like Partnership Forum, Youth Forum, the STI Forum, and the High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development, to have events or side events or webinars, discussions in which we can bring the FFD topics to those constituencies, which we think is very important. And then all the dates that we already mentioned before. So we will put this in the website, and we will put a little bit more information on this for civil society to look at. So one important thing that we have been mandated to do is for your ministries member states to really think about a focal point that from the Minister of Finance or ministries that are relevant to have a connection between the global and the national. So the mandate comes from paragraph 65D, and this is really going to serve as a standing mechanism to link global, regional, and national follow-up. What is a national focal point? Focal points, as we are conceiving this, is officials in finance or other relevant ministries who are intended to strengthen national follow-up on the implementation of the Sevilla Commitment. They may be involved with national cross-departmental platforms for policy coordination on financing issues. So we have built an understanding of what the financing for development process is and how important it is to have cross-fertilization among ministries and among different work streams. So this focal point will be the interlocutors to really have this in a structured way. In terms of the network, so you would receive very soon from DESA a note verbal to nominate focal points. And the idea is that the aims of this network is to enable peer-to-peer learning, to connect the global and regional FFD processes and dialogue to national level actors, and to strengthen the contribution of national level work to international follow-up. All of this, again, is subject to the availability of resources, how much we can do on the first year and how we will structure it. But the steps that we are taking right now is we have a concept note that is internal. We have been discussing it with the regional economic commissions and DCO to make sure that we use all the existing networks and we understand what's happening and how we can make this a very effective network. In November, we will invite for nominations. We hope to have an inaugural meeting in April in the forum, in the sidelines of the forum and fair. And we also think that we will be ready to roll out other networks activities in 2027. So in-person annual meetings that may be around the forum and the fair could provide a platform to review progress, obviously voluntarily, and also share recommendations from national experiences. So this is what we are, how far we are in this conception of the national focal points network that you have assigned us to do. So I think the next time, now I give the floor to Oliver, the chief of the policy analysis branch in FSDO.
Thank you, Mariangela. Good morning again, colleagues. So I'll be saying a few words about the Financing for Sustainable Development report, which the Sevilla Commitment renewed the mandate to the Interagency Task Force to produce that annual report. And we are making a few changes to that product. I'm assuming most of you will be familiar with that report. It's our 10th edition, so you have seen a few of those. But because of how the Sevilla Commitment was formulated, we are making a few changes, and that's what this first slide here highlights. So first, since this is the first report after the adoption of the Sevilla Commitment, we will start the report with a mapping exercise, which would lay out the commitments or the actions that are in the Sevilla Commitment to establish a common understanding of the actors and entities that are involved, that are taking forward the various actions under the agreed FFD4 outcome. So that's in the Sevilla Commitment section. Then we will do a second part of the report, which we are right now calling in numbers, which would provide updates on key indicators or key figures and charts across all the action areas of the Financing for Development outcomes that would illustrate progress, trends, and challenges in each of those. So you will get a holistic picture of where we are in implementing the Sevilla Commitment. We will deal with all the action areas. But these will be very concise. So we are thinking of 3 to 4 pages, very data heavy, with with short write-ups on progress in implementation. And then we have a third section, which we are calling In Focus, which will then delve in depth into those action areas that will be under in-depth review in 2026. So we are going to follow the cycle that member states have established in the Sevilla Commitment. So the chapters that you also may recall, that more in-depth treatment of the action areas, we will do those for the action areas that are under in-depth review. In 2026, there are 4 of them. It's domestic and international private business and finance, trade, the financial architecture and systemic issues, and data monitoring and follow-up. Those will also be the chapters under in-depth review in the forum. So we will have in-depth treatment of those 4 action areas with analysis, thematic deep dives, recommendations to member states. We can go to the next slide. So what would that look like in terms of an outline? We, of course, would have an overview, introduction, key messages of the report. Section 2, the mapping. Section 3, the data-driven updates. And then Section 4, in focus, those 4 chapters, plus a brief assessment of the global economic context. We always do that in the FSDR, and will, of course, retain that important element to frame the broader discussions around Sevilla implementation within the global macroeconomic context, which is often very determinative of progress on financing. I think we have one more slide on the FSDI, the timeline. So a lot of the preparatory work has been concluded. We've had several meetings within the task force at various levels. We've talked with the chapter groups, and now you have in front of you an initial draft outline, though I should say that this outline is, of course, a living document and a work in progress, and is adjusting as we consult with entities as we start drafting the report. We are planning, we have this briefing today, and we are calling stakeholders for inputs. In addition to the task force, we always invite other actors to share inputs and their reflections to inform the drafting. And then the next phase, that's the phase that's coming right now, is really for the task force, all our partners and ourselves to draft this report. We also plan to do one more briefing early in 2026. We've done it in the past too on the global economic context. That's really built around the macroeconomic assessments of some of our core partners, the IMF, the World Bank, UNCTAD, and also DESA, all have assessments of the global macroeconomic context. So we will try to organize a briefing on that in January or February, which is also a last update on progress in drafting the report. And then the advanced unedited version will be made available to you at the end of February, as mandated and as in previous years. Subsequently, in early March, we'll organize the technical briefings. Again, those of you who have been part of this process will be familiar. We will have 3 or 4 sessions where we'll really talk in depth with the chapter authors on the various chapters of the report, and you can ask detailed questions. And then we'll formally launch the report to the press around 9 April, I see here. Yeah, and then, of course, in the forum, the report will also be formally presented. So that's the task force report, and I should say we have several task force members here, including the major institutional stakeholders who will say a few words. So if you have questions on that, there'll be time to ask about that. I'll also briefly speak to the Sevilla Platform for Action and our plans to follow up on this important aspect of the conference. As you've heard from our director, different stakeholders put forward 130 initiatives that very neatly map to the Sevilla Commitment and that help implement various of its actions. We, together with the host country, with Spain, we are maintaining the digital registry of this platform. That's ongoing. Lead entities are welcome at any time to provide updates on the initiatives. And this is proving to be very dynamic. So I could say, for example, that after Sevilla, 20 entities have joined new initiatives. So that's very much a live process and a platform that's growing. We are also setting up and planning to implement the first cycle of self-reporting of initiative progress. As we've said, this is all entirely voluntary and has to be thought of course, separately from the Sevilla Commitment, but we are enabling those initiatives that want to update on progress to do that. There's a self-reporting process that's opening now, and all initiatives will be invited to update on the progress through the website that's also being built out further. And when that progress is directly relevant to the implementation of the Sevilla Commitment, we will, of course, also include it in our FSDR report, and there may also be space in the FFD Forum, pending other decisions, of course, to present such progress when it's relevant to the Sevilla Commitment itself. So that's the initial plans on the platform for action. And then I'll say a few words on the debt follow-up, because that is the one action area where maybe there has been the most attention in the lead-up and since Sevilla. Shari already laid out, and I think you're all familiar with the bucket of debt actions. There are 3 items that are directly being taken forward within the UN context that I can speak to. One is the Borrowers Club. Colleagues from UNCTAD are on the call, so they could add more to that. The second is the working group on the consolidated set of principles. This is something that has been tasked to the Secretary General, and with the support of DESA and UNCTAD, the Secretary General will take this action forward in the coming weeks. And then the third item that is expected to unfold within the UN context is the intergovernmental process and the dialogue on that, the Action 50F. And on that one, we are ready to support member states in taking up this action and in taking it forward. But it does require further determinations of member states on next steps on the modalities of that process. Complementing the Sevilla Commitment, there are also quite a few initiatives in the Sevilla Platform for Action that we expect will help implementation of the Sevilla Commitment on that. You can see on the right in the slide a few of those: the Debt Pause Clause Alliance, the Global Hub for Debt Swap that Spain has initiated at the World Bank, with the World Bank, the Borrowers Club, and a few others. And then there's also, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with this, the Sevilla Forum on Debt, which is a voluntary initiative in the SPA, a contribution by the Spanish government, which also will contribute to maintain momentum for follow-up on the debt actions. I think that's my last slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so then I give back the floor to Shari. Yes, Shari, over to you for the next segment.
And we're now, perfect. Thanks so much, Oliver, and thanks, Mariangela. And we're now going to give the chance for the major institutional stakeholders who are with us to give some of their comments. I'm going to start with Tom Bello, the Director of the Sustainable Finance Hub of UNDP.
Thanks, Shari. Great to see everybody, and congratulations on a very clear articulation of the focus, both in the FSDR and the forum and process moving forward. I think it's the proposed FSDR outline is great. I think, Oliver, you articulated an answer to what was going to be my question at the end of your presentation, which was how the Sevilla Platform for Action initiatives will link to the reporting on the Sevilla Commitment. And I think you've articulated that very clearly through the self-reporting mechanism that provides you with information on those initiatives. I did have a question around the way in which the FSDR will incorporate or not country case studies, whether that's something that's in the design and planning for the report, because I do think that that will help articulate what I think we really need to show, which is a focus on impact vis-a-vis the FFD4 implementation. So that would be a question for you. I again really welcome the way in which the forum and the process continues to have a global focus, but incorporate countries into that frame with the focal points that are being appointed at the country level. I think that's a huge opportunity. And UNDP stands ready to support as we can in any way the process of identifying, but also supporting those focal points at the country level in their preparation, both for the forum and for the role that they will need to play on implementation of the Sevilla Commitment. And I think also, as you'd expect, the integrated national financing framework process at the country level perhaps provides an opportunity for us to link the country level implementation of FFD4 and the global process of dialogue and reporting. So really just to Mark, congratulations, and with the minor questions, and ready to provide support as required. Back over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Tom. And I'm now going to go to our colleague Penelope Hawkins, the Chief of Service in the Debt and Globalization Division at UNCTAD.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So. Perfect. Thank you so much. So, I mean, thanks very much for the opportunity. Obviously, you know that within the UNCTAD space, we are working also on FDIs, IFFs, beyond GDP, and of course, science and technology. So I'm just going to be talking about debt in this process. And so certainly, yes, in terms of the report that we see Oliver has expanded on so eloquently, there really is now a new focus, an in-depth focus that allows us to then look at other areas in perhaps a more, shall we say, data-driven way. And debt is one of those chapters this year. We will be contributing, of course, to the data, and hopefully next year, the following year, into that more focused area. So from our side, of course, we see this as a very important process that we continue to report on all of these action areas. I'm certainly available to talk further around the borrowers platform that was mentioned earlier, and how that is distinguished from the Seville Forum on Debt, if anybody has any further questions. But the borrowers platform, of course, is what was in the Seville Commitment, and this Seville Forum on Debt is something that came afterwards. So I think that just to make that clear. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Penelope. I'm now going to go to WTO, to Raul Torres. Raul, are you here?
Yes.
To give a few words. Great, good to see you. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Shari, and nice to see you, colleagues, and thanks for the very clear and informative presentation. So on the trade front, of course, we're already at work in preparing the outline for the trade section of the FSDR. This has already been circulated to the other agencies in the IATF for comments. There are four key areas of focus. One related to the preservation of the multilateral trading system, strengthening trade capacities, then and integration into regional value chains, boosting trade in LDCs, and finally increasing local value addition and looking at critical minerals and commodities. I think that those are four areas that very much came to the fore in the context of the Sevilla Compromiso de Sevilla. So I think it's good that we are focusing on this year. Then there's a particular challenge this time for us, for the WTO, in terms of the timing of the production of this report, as well as the coincidence with the WTO Ministerial Conference, which will take place at the end of March. So that will be probably after we already have first a draft of the report, but it will be also before the meeting in New York of the Bretton Woods institutions, WTO and UNCTAD, which we are very much looking forward to, and then would also like to have some further guidance from the FSDO as to how they see this going, and what would be more or less the format of this meeting. So I think that with that, I'll hand over the floor. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Earl, and we will be in touch with you to discuss more and with our colleagues in UNCTAD on the plans for the meeting. It's a conversation between the ECOSOC and the ambassadors in New York and the boards of the WTO and UNCTAD, and we will together as Secretariat support all of our political entities to have a really meaningful discussion.
Right.
I'm now going, unfortunately, our other colleagues, the other two major institutional stakeholders, IMF and World Bank, actually very much wanted to participate. They are on a plane right now, so we're unable to make it, but they will join us in the future. And so with that, I'm going to close the opening part of this discussion by emphasizing that our office wants to support, strengthen, and increase engagement with stakeholders in the FFD process. This is really important to us and to member states. And that by stakeholders, we really mean officials both in member state capitals, delegates in New York, but also colleagues in the UN system, staff at the international organizations not in the system, and of course, civil society, as well as researchers, academics, the private sector, and others. So as you saw from Mary Angela's calendar, we are really thinking together, and we welcome feedback on how to make this process a truly inclusive process where all voices can come together. The financing for agenda is obviously critical to the achievement of sustainable development and implementation of the Sevilla Commitment. We had a really positive moment, I think, in Spain, and really it's the question of how do we ensure a real follow-up and a meaningful follow-up is, I think, on everyone's minds. So really thank you for your engagement, and I'm really hoping to see everyone in the follow-up process. Since I'm in Doha at the Social Summit, the second World Social Summit for Social Development, I'm going to actually pass the floor to Oliver to moderate in New York, to moderate the remainder of the meeting. So Oliver, over to you.
Great, thank you, Shari. I should add that while the special representatives are both en route to Doha, there are colleagues from the bank and the fund here, and I think they've agreed if there are specific questions to the institutions that they can answer them. So so this is now your chance to ask any questions of us, of task force representatives that are also here. So I'm opening the floor for questions and comments from the audience. We'll see first if there are any in the room. See who would want to go first. Or were the presentations so clear that we leave you without any questions? Okay, we'll start here with the UK.
And thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. Hopefully you can hear me now. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about the focal point structure and how that information is going to be shared with other member states. So sounds like a positive addition. We're just trying to understand kind of as a member state how we can best feed into that. Is it going to receive written input? So are we supposed to kind of update with pledges based on the Sevilla Programme of Action? We have a number of events next year which are going to be taking forward initiatives which we discussed at FFD4, looking at state contingent debt clauses, illicit financial flows, things of that nature. So just interested to know how exactly we're meant to feed in, and then once that information is captured, how that will be dispersed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a few and then do a first round of answers. I know there's a hand up from South Africa virtually. So Ahmed, over to you. That's online. So if you can make that happen technically.
Yeah. So Oliver, do you hear me?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Good. Thanks. So morning to everyone, and thank you for the briefings as usual. I was just recalling that when we negotiated the follow-up, we couldn't really agree on an indicator framework, to have a more rigorous accounting for all our promises in the FFD process. But what we did land on was the language that we had previously about the interagency task force, but with a new some new guidance, which basically was asking the interagency task force to consider options to prevent its findings in a more interactive and user-friendly manner. So, my understanding from the negotiations was that we actually falling back on the Secretariat a lot here, and the FSDR, in the absence of any indicator framework, is, as it was before, going to be the main tool for follow-up. It's going to frame what all the actions are that we're going to be monitoring, and provide all the data on whether we're succeeding or not. So, it's just, that's the point I wanted to make, and also to ask, have you given any thought to what was requested? So basically, it's how the way the FSDR presents information can be adjusted to empower delegates to get a better grip on follow-up and make sure that our promises are translated into actual results. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ahmed. Very good question. Oh, Rafaela, yeah, Mexico, please.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you for all the information. I just wanted, more of a comment, just wanted to say that the next group of Friends of Monterey is going to be tentatively held from the 11th to the 13th of March in Mexico City. This is the 10th edition, so we're hoping it'll be something very special and just a great opportunity for to add to the process of the FFD follow-up. So yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. That's exciting to know. We look forward to joining you in Mexico City in March. So maybe we'll take the two questions and then we go to the next round of questions. Do you want to start with the focal points, Mariangela? Yeah.
Thank you so much for the question. I think the focal point that can be as expansive or as limited as we want, and with member states, with your inputs. It's going to be independent in a way from the monitoring or follow-up of the SPY initiatives, because I think those are going to be, those involve many different actors, each of them. But obviously, along the way, we will determine how member states want to use the national focal point to monitor any of these of their voluntary contributions. If they don't want to talk in the general debate and they want to talk through the focal points, this is a kind of an exercise that we have in progress. For now, the idea is that the focal points in different countries meet together and they have peer learning on what they're doing, and that there is a communication between the national, the regional, and the global. And then we will see how we can develop the contribution here in New York in terms of presentations. I don't know if you have any others to contribute on that question. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, I mean, what we are doing initially is we will, through this note verbal that Mariangela mentioned, convene the network. And then the first step is to, once we have those focal points, we can really keep them abreast of the developments in this global FFD process, invite them to contribute to the process and share information. That's something that can happen very easily within existing resources. But I think, as many of you have also said in other settings, there's a lot of potential to further use such a resource going forward. And we have ideas on how to do that. And so then we'll also be looking for your inputs of how to develop that network further. But of course, that would also require, additional resources to really make the most of that. But what we will do now is we will invite all of you to nominate, and then we have, at a minimum, which is already very helpful, this way of channeling communication both ways, from the process here to the national, and to bring those national experiences to the global process. And then I'll take the other two questions on the task force report. So Tom, on your question on the case studies, yes, that's very welcome, and we did that to some extent in past editions of the report, and that will remain an option. So we have these boxes, in-depth focus boxes, and it's always interesting. I completely agree to use those to present country-level experiences in implementation, because they really enrich the analysis, which is by necessity often very high level and aggregated across regions. So I think that really does add to the report, and so we welcome such contributions, and there's a space for that in the report. On the question on the indicator framework, so yeah, of course we are very mindful of that this was under active discussion by the membership, and in the end did not make it into the agreement. So we are not proposing an indicator framework, but we are considering, as requested, how to make the report more user-friendly and more interactive. So the user-friendly, I think the main innovation that I hope responds to this is that we will have these summaries, concise updates on each of the action areas, which would allow delegates and other stakeholders really to get a sense of where we are in implementation in a relatively concise way. And the reports got longer over the years, and in the end it was really a quite substantive volume. And maybe that partly motivated this request for us to become more user-friendly. And so adding this in number section that's going to give this quick overview of progress across the action areas is our response to this. But we look forward to the reception of that. So we look forward to your feedback and whether this meets the needs. And of course, it's combined with the in focus chapter. So we are not giving up on the really detailed analysis and monitoring. We'll just do it in this biennial cycle. The second element of the request was to consider more interactive ways of monitoring. And there I'm going to be very honest with you. That is not something that we can do within the current resource environment. But of course, it would be possible. And we have considered this even in the first iteration of the task force when we set up the report in 2016. Some of you may even remember we had an online annex that went into a bit more depth and presented data in an interactive manner. And of course, that's something that we could consider, and having these in number sections in a way is the basis for that. And one could consider presenting this data in a more interactive way. We could consider allowing, if we put this on a website so you can look at specific regions or even countries and pull out the relevant data. So that's something that would be possible, but it's not something we would have ready for the 2026 report. But it's something we'd be excited to take up. Let me put it that way. The other idea here is, again, something that's not in the pipeline now, but that one could consider is we have national focal points going forward, and we have this idea that countries are encouraged voluntarily to report on progress in implementation. So one could, of course, also, and this is something the task force could do, think about developing some kind of a framework that would help countries present their progress in a structured way. So this is something the task force could also think about providing, some kind of a reporting framework that those countries that want to use it, that could then complete and then bring those experiences, the outcomes to the FFD Forum. Again, that would be another way to make this more interactive, and that's another idea that we are excited about and that we could consider taking forward in future years. Yeah, I leave it at that now, and then we go to the next round of questions, and we have, we have three requests for the floor online. First is the delegate from Zambia, and then just so you are aware and can get ready, we have Jason Braganza and Anita Thomas, both civil society representatives. But first I go to Willa.
Thank you so much for the very elaborate presentation that have been given. Thank you for the discussion. And also just to appreciate the work that has gone into putting all these frameworks together, the planning work, as well as the momentum really, that we can see that the Secretariat and the agencies are attaching to this very important thing. I just wanted to, first of all, react to your last point, Oliver, about sort of providing a framework that would allow countries to voluntarily report on their efforts towards implementing the commitment in the Sevilla Commitment. I think that is something that would be quite welcome. My main question really, and it sort of builds on, in part, what Ahmed raised about the reporting framework, the data framework, and so on, particularly for countries in the Global South, and the focal point network, which is extremely important. To sort of support implementation, I note that in different recent frameworks that we have had, there's been support or some guidance that is given to member states on mainstreaming some of these commitments in their national framework so that they are able then to track how they are implementing this. Has there been any thought towards some kind of, particularly for member states, some kind of sort of support or framework they could follow to in mainstreaming the Sevilla Commitment? And I raised this just after the point you raised because it could then naturally sort of fit seamlessly into that voluntary done. But essentially, just getting aspects in the Sevilla Commitment at the level policy framework is going to be quite critical in supporting implementation. So that was my main question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we can respond to that. And then next on my list is Jason. Also online.
Hi, am I audible? Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you, Jason. Over to you.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much, Oliver and team, for convening this very important session. And I think as civil society, on behalf of the FFD mechanism, ours is mostly to be in listening mode to understand a little bit better the proposals that have been presented here today, and also to take note of the reactions by partner institutions and some of the member states who have already spoken. But perhaps worth noting that there is a new mandate under the Compromiso, and therefore perhaps also sufficient for us to present some of our long-standing positions on some of the key things that have been presented this morning. I think first and foremost on the IATF, I think you'll be very familiar with our position on the power imbalances that exist within the membership of the IATF and how it appears to be out of sync with a focus, and even more so with the current geopolitical context. And that the core struggle of the FFD process is that of democratizing global economic governance and establish a more democratic governance ecosystem centered around the United Nations. So especially with multilateralism in the manner in which it finds itself today, perhaps we may want to think about how the IATF rethinks itself as a space or as a process for the implementation of the Compromiso as we move forward. And we would also want member states to continue thinking about the focus on funding and strengthening intergovernmental follow-up rather than interagency processes. I think the other part that we would like to sort of raise and maybe flag also is the forum and special meetings. And again, just think about the concern that we have around the disconnect between the outcome of the negotiations and the forum agenda, and that this process should be member state led, with negotiations at the very core. So just how the entire setup and the process for the forum, we just need to think about how that needs to be reorganized. And then with the platform of actions, I think it's very useful to say and to observe how the different initiatives have come about and how relevant they can be, particularly those that have been mentioned around debt. However, I think there needs to be a more democratic process in finding where these actually fit within the FFD outcome, as a mandate for the FFD outcome document in implementation. So I think it would be useful for DESA to maybe give us a bit of a clue into how this has come to be, that the initiatives under SPA seem to be finding their way into the decision-making process, if you like, of the FFD4 outcomes document. So, and I think the issue around national focused interventions under the NFP, we do have, a very well-established critique around INFFs, and this is known, by member states. And therefore, the idea around national focused interventions versus the global mandate of the FFD agenda in terms of systemic global governance reforms. How do we manage that balance in this conversation, in the advance and in the pursuit for a more democratic global economic governance dispensation? So I think, on behalf of the FFD mechanism, these are some of the ideas and concerns that we would like to put before this first meeting, and really appreciate the continued engagement with civil society, but also encourage us that we do have a new mandate from Sevilla, and perhaps in the current state that we find ourselves internationally and politically, that we may want to tweak a few of the things that we had been doing in the past that perhaps almost threatened to derail what we got out of SPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. We'll respond to these points. But before that, let me now give the floor to Anita Thomas. Anita, over to you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share a perspective on behalf of the NGO Committee on Financing for Development. We welcome the draft outline of the 2026 FSDR. This report establishes a credible baseline for tracking Sevilla outcome commitments, as Jason already mentioned, positioning it as a key framework for transparency and accountability. The related initiatives under the Sevilla Platform for Action, while voluntary in nature, should be reflected as instruments integral to operationalizing those commitments, not as parallel efforts. In Section 2, the mapping of action should go beyond cataloging. It should identify who is responsible, what resources are mobilized, and how implementation will be measured. A strong accountability spine with timelines, indicators, and reporting lines will help ensure the Sevilla promise translates into delivery. The report should also better capture cross-cutting enablers, particularly climate and environmental finance, local and subnational financing, and measures to curb illicit financial flows and tax-based erosion. These are essential to unlocking resources where they are most needed. The report should acknowledge that multilateral cooperation remains fragile. A growing reliance on bilateral and protectionist measures is constraining fair competition, innovation, and developing countries' ability to move up the value chains. Trade is no longer functioning as an engine for development as it was intended to be. The geopolitical context and its risk to progress should be assessed. In focus section, the discussion on critical mineral governance should examine environmental, health, and human rights impacts and highlight how MSMEs can contribute to responsible production and local value addition. And finally, the growing shift from public ODA to private investment demands careful review. Private finance has a role, but its incentive differs from public mandates. Public-private partnerships can bring innovation and efficiency, but only with full transparency, clear contracts, and strong monitoring. Private actors benefiting from public support should be held to clear sustainability and regulatory standards so that financing for development delivers equitable and accountable outcomes, not just greater capital flows. Thank you for the opportunity. The committee will be providing in-depth written response to the outline as well. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Anita, and we look forward to those written inputs. Are there any more questions? I'm looking at Peter. Or comments? We'll come back. Okay, so we'll do a round of responses. Should I start this time, Mariangela?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so, if any of our other speakers from the major institutional stakeholders want to come in, please raise your hand, let me know, then we'll also give you a chance to respond if there's anything you wanted to respond to. So, two or three quick things. So first, on the reporting, the question from Zambia. So what we haven't given that systematic thought. So what I'm saying is not something we've discussed, for example, with the task force, because it's not something we've started to work on formally. But maybe a few preliminary thoughts of what such a framework could look like. I think one is that the work we are doing for the FSDR this year, laying out key data points, key figures that could represent progress in an action area, might also be a good starting point for such a framework. So there would be some preliminary work done. The question is that always appropriate for national level reporting, these types of figures and charts? But it would be a starting point, I assume, and that will be ready in February. The second point, and this is partly a response to Jason also, is that in my mind at least, any such reporting framework would of course have to reflect the Sevilla Commitment in its entirety. That means it would have to speak to both national and global dimensions. So just to put that concretely, a developing country that reports could use that also to report on how progress or lack of progress in the financial architecture issues is impacting their progress in implementation, or receipt of concessional finance and how that's impacting their national financing progress. So I think any such framework, if we were to develop this, would have to speak to both those dimensions. And then the last point on this is that I do indeed think that integrated financing frameworks and the structures that have been built around in many countries around these frameworks would be a natural place to start or to incorporate in such a reporting framework. So where an institutional setup is in place around such frameworks, that would also obviously be the right place to start thinking about a reporting that could then inform global discussions. On the other question from Jason around the Sevilla platform. So I think that we are quite careful in how we follow up on this. There is the platform and the online platform, which is something we are we look forward to developing further, really to give the initiatives a space to update on progress, to continue to grow, which we see happening, which is very exciting. But that is, as you rightly say, separate from the intergovernmentally mandated follow-up on the agreed outcome, which is the Sevilla Commitment. Those two are not at the same level. They are not the same thing. So in the task force, we are mandated to follow up on the agreed outcome, the Sevilla Commitment. So that's the focus. We map the Sevilla Commitment, the SPA initiatives to the outcome, so that we know when relevant, we can also use that information, right? So there are many examples where there's an agreed action in the Sevilla Commitment, for example, to scale up debt pause clauses, and there happens to also be an initiative in that area. So then, of course, what this initiative does is directly relevant to implementation of the intergovernmentally agreed outcome, and we would reflect on that in the task force report, and that might also then come up in the discussions at the forum. But we are very careful in making that distinction, and the primary focus of the task force follow-up is indeed the agreed outcome, the Sevilla Commitment. Maybe I'll leave it at that. Mariangela, did you want to add?
Thank you. Yes, regarding the question on how the outcome of the negotiations for the forum reflects in the forum itself, I think that's a very relevant question. The outcome document will bring what member states are considering is needed to further implementation, and I think the same issues that are being brought up will be most likely the ones that we are going to form the discussions in during the forum. So there should be a natural relationship between the two. We are restarting the whole process in the forum, and also I'm sure the outcome document will be reflecting also this new framework in which we are. So the separation between the two most likely will not be as it was in previous years, in which there was no framework, no recent framework. The outcome document needed to really reflect the emerging issues and what needed to be agreed at that point. We look forward really about what the negotiations are going to be for the outcome document. In terms of for Anita, I really welcome the issue on MSMEs and how really they can facilitate the work, the adding value addition, and we are considering in the new fair, we are considering to have different aspects of this. One of them would be clearly what medium and small enterprises can do, but the financing is needed there, and other so it would be really like a cross-cutting exercise, also including the fair and what we will do there. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 6 more requests for questions, so we'll also have to close the list here because we don't want to go over. Yes, so we have in the room the ILO and Zambia. And then just so colleagues are aware, we have Amparo, Bodo, Ursula, and then Karin from SIDA. Those are the final requests. Oh, and France, sorry, so 7. So we'll take the 3 in the room first. ILO, yeah. And then Zambia, France.
Thank you. I'm delighted to take the floor. My name is Carlos Carrion Crespo from the International Labour Office. The ILO is the custodian for the SDG Indicator 131 on social protection effective coverage, and our latest data show that despite the benefits social protection has, today only 52.4% of the global population is covered by at least one social protection benefit. The ILO is pleased to see that there is global momentum for closing this gap because UN member states included in the domestic public resources section of the Compromiso de Sevilla, paragraph 27I on financing social protection systems. It calls for financing of social protection systems, including floors in line with International Labour Organization standards. This paragraph further stresses that there is a need to facilitate the extension of social protection effective coverage by at least 2 percentage points per year in developing countries. The 2 percentage points target is now also included in the political declaration of the Second World Summit for Social Development, which will be adopted tomorrow in Doha. The ILO would like to thank DESA colleagues for including social protection effective coverage data in the outline of the 2026 FSDR. We are pleased to continue working closely with DESA's financing for the FSDO to provide the necessary data and inputs. In closing, the ILO reaffirms its commitment to supporting countries in expanding social protection coverage for all, including both at the country and global level, and thanks again DESA for the fruitful collaboration on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I can return those thanks for the great collaboration in the lead-up and now since Sevilla. Zambia.
Thank you very much, FSDO team, and good morning, everyone. My question is regarding the SPA initiatives. I note that there are quite a number of them, about 130, which is a good thing. But I was just wondering, when it comes to the actual implementation, how it's going to be done, and also tying it in with the online platform that FSDO is working on. Is there a possibility of merging some of the initiatives? Because, well, I can imagine how hectic it would be to tell my ministry, for example, that there are 130 initiatives that we could join, when in actual sense, maybe some of them could be very similar. So perhaps we could kind of maximize the impact by merging the very similar ones. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Aurelia.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you very much for the very useful and timely briefing. I've got several comments and maybe follow-up questions regarding the previous questions. First, would it be possible to publish the PowerPoint presentation that was made today? I believe that will be really useful for us and our capital as well. My second question is relating to the national focal point mechanisms. I do understand you want to establish linkages directly with, capitals. Totally agree with that. My question is maybe how do you foresee the way we work, us, permanent missions, with the focal points and also the secretariat? I believe this is very important for us in order not to have duplication and in order to ensure good coordination. So very interested to hear you about that. Regarding the in-numbers section of the FSDR report, I believe, and this will be a very useful section of the document for sure. My question is to have also, my plea, I'd say, will be to have a clear section also about methodology. I believe that will be really useful for us to understand what indicators are used, also relating to the question about, indicator that was asked by South Africa, for us to better understand what are the indicators used and how those you come up with the data and the numbers used in the report. I believe that will be also really useful for us. And maybe a last question regarding the borrowers platform. I believe that we have a colleague from Geneva and working on the debt division of the UNCTAD, and we will be very happy to hear everything that you could have on the borrowers platform. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Very clear questions. So let me go online. The first speaker is Amparo Graf. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that too badly.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for all the work you've been doing during those years in the past with the report as well, because I find it very useful also for research purposes and making proposals. I was there in Sevilla, and I understand that from a tax law perspective, we have to check the domestic revenue mobilization with a better financial management in the public sector. But there's a problem which I see often, and is the lack of synergies between different parts of the report and the one explaining public finance and tax law, or taxation. And I can see that, for instance, in the Interagency Task Force on Social and Solidarity Economy work, which is demanding incentives for micro and small, medium enterprises in that area. And then the tax committee or the UN Framework Convention intergovernmental negotiations don't take them into account because they don't even know how to manage well economic, social, and governance criteria. And that was a very difficult topic when dealing in the debate, the structure of the convention and the terms of reference. So, yeah, I would like to raise a voice to ask you if you can, when drafting the report, to point out the places where that financial support would have make a real difference. Because I think until now, we can see that we are focusing too much on collecting revenue and not in better spending, and not recognizing contributions to sustainability that are done by small actors. We are focusing on the main big players in the tax field, and sometimes others who are really saving costs are not taken into account. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that question. Next on my list is Bodo.
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. And quickly, 2 points, one on monitoring and the second one on the working group. First on the monitoring, I think it's welcome, as many previous speakers said, that the IATF report has a stronger focus on the monitoring side, and we're definitely going to send you an input for that, also probably with a focus on cost of capital. On the voluntary country reports, I think this is an interesting innovation. It's good to see a test run at the Financing for Development Forum to see what the pickup among the member states is, what the quality and scope of the reports is. We, of course, have the experience with the voluntary national reviews from the HLPF process. And I find, what I see on country level is that they're good for stakeholder engagement, not necessarily, of course, for addressing the most critical points in implementation or in constraints to implementation. I would also recall that in the run-up to Sevilla, there were some proposals to have more like a peer review process for monitoring, like taking, for instance, the DAC peer reviews on ODA, for example, or also the peer reviews that the reviews that the Human Rights Council is doing. So there are even additional tools that could be used on this point. And then on the second point, the working group on responsible lending and borrowing, there was quite some confusion now due to the statements made by Amina Mohammed and Li Yunhua at UNCTAD 16. So the Sevilla Forum is not the working group on responsible lending and borrowing, I understand, but could you perhaps explain how the two will relate to each other, and if the working group and the Sevilla Forum are two different things? Who's gonna decide on this, on the composition of the working group? Who's gonna be the members? Is Jason gonna be a member, for example? Or also what the scope of the working group is gonna be? What's the timeline? You know that we have experience. It's not a new format. There was the working group on responsible lending and borrowing hosted by UNCTAD 10, 50 years ago. It was a multi-stakeholder group, and it also led to the principles on responsible lending and borrowing. So how's this new working group gonna look like? Thanks.
Great, thank you for that and for the opportunity to clarify some of this. Ursula. Ursula Makevich, I think. See, your hand is up.
Yes.
We can't hear you yet. If not, then I'll go to Karen Svensson from CEDA. Karen, over to you.
Thank you very much. Great to see everyone. And first of all, I would like to congratulate the committee to a great outline of the upcoming FSDR report, of course. And then I would like to take us back to Seville, beginning of July, at the International Business Forum, neighboring to the political conference and FFD conference itself. It was 45 degrees, and the International Business Forum was really boiling. Private sector was and is very engaged, active, ready to engage, looking for more guarantees maybe, but ready to engage and work with sustainable development and for FFD4. Someone was mentioning that they have the checkbook and the governments and the countries have the rule book. And my question was, how do we keep this momentum now going forward, and also keeping the private sector to stand by their commitments? Is there room for a separate section for private sector in the Financing for Sustainable Development report? And how would the communique that the private sector released be followed up with the 5 action areas that they would engage in? So thank you. Those are my questions. Back to you.
Sorry? Okay. Yeah, but one more try. Ursula, can you hear us? Did you want to come in? If not, we are short on time, so that's fine. I think so. Let's go through the questions. Maybe I'll ask first any of our major institutional stakeholders. Penelope, I think there was a question specifically to you. If you want to start.
Yes, thanks, Oliver. Yes, thank you very much for the question on the borrowers platform. So, yes, as I think has been clearly established, the borrowers platform is separate to the Seville Forum on Debt. The Seville Forum on Debt, remember, is a voluntary country-led process. The borrowers platform was in the Sevilla Commitment, and the borrowers platform right now is with the member states in the sense that they are establishing a working group represented by 2 countries from each of the developing country regions and 2 SIDs who will be meeting very shortly. We're not sure exactly when. The countries are in the process of identifying focal points And that process would be a set of temporary working group meetings where those who are part of that transition working group set out possible options of modalities for the borrowers platform. And then that would have to be taken to member states. Member states will also be invited to participate in the borrowers forum. And on the basis of that process, there would then be a launch and a first meeting sometime in the near future. I think that sets out where we are with that. I don't know if there was anything else, Oliver, you wanted me to address, but I think that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Penelope. Very helpful. Mariangela, did you want to take some?
Yes, thank you so much. I would like to take the question from France regarding the national focal points. Obviously, the missions in New York are our interlocutors, and this national focal point network was decided by you and with you. And the idea is that communications will always be to the delegates here in New York and to the focal points. The idea is to keep alive this connection that was created going through Sevilla of different ministries and discussing these issues that are relevant to different ministries. And we will continue that, obviously keeping the information flowing and only to facilitate our work and maybe also your work in Capital to have somebody that knows what the process is and can continue keeping it alive and doing things as you do here. Also, I think that was one question. Regarding the question from Karen, the FSDR has a section on private sector, and it's going to be one of the focus areas of this year, both in the FSDR and also in the forum. And in the forum, as you remember, in the Sevilla Commitment, there was also an invitation to the steering committee and to GISD to present in the forum. We also have the fair that is going to integrate this is gonna, I don't know if I should kind of characterize it like this, but like a mini IBF, mini International Business Forum that will bring many different stakeholders to discuss, to give accountability to what the private sector may have committed to do, and also all the others that are required so that these investments really get made on the SDGs. So we have these two very important elements to have that. Thank you, Karen, for the question.
Great. And so let me add a few points. So on the SPA follow-up and this question of are some of them not quite similar, and would it help to bring them together? I think you are right, and this is something that's become quite clear to us in the exercise we are currently undertaking, where we are mapping the Sevilla Commitment and the actions. But in that same exercise, we are also looking at the initiatives under the SPA and where they fit substantively in the Sevilla Commitment. And you really see a bunching up. So there's, I think, over 40 initiatives on the issue of mobilizing private investment. And so it really does raise that question. Some of them will be quite similar in focus. There might even be a bit of overlap in who are the proponents. So I think that's definitely something one could consider going forward, and maybe in this first year, as we set up the monitoring, the self-reporting, and as we lay out how these initiatives are focusing their efforts, that could also trigger that conversation of maybe some of them coming together. And I think I don't want to speak on behalf of Spain. They're, of course, really integral to this SPA follow-up, but I think that is also something that is being considered there. There was a question specifically from Professor Amparo related to tax and the domestic resources chapter. Just very quickly on that one, that is not going to be an in-depth in-focus chapter this year. So the monitoring will be more limited, looking at some key indicators that can tell us where countries are implementing there. But I think it's an important point, this question of alignment of fiscal systems, not just the tax system, that's well reflected in Sevilla, and that certainly will be a big focus when we discuss this chapter in depth next year. And then just complementing what Penelope said on debt, similar to the relationship between the Borrowers Forum and the Sevilla Forum, the same, I think, can be said also for the working group that Bodo mentioned. So the working group is something that's mandated in the Sevilla Commitment. The SG has been asked to convene such a working group, and UNCTAD and DESA will support the SG in doing that. And then the Sevilla Forum, this initiative by Spain, could be a space where this working group could present some of its work, where that work could be discussed in a broader setting, because the Sevilla Forum, as we understand, will be a place for dialogue on these types of issues. But the mandate and the tasking and the responsibility is with the Secretary General right now, and that's what we, together with Penelope, we are supporting the SG in convening this group, and you'll be hearing fairly soon about the composition, etc. I cannot commit here to putting Jason on the group, but we'll be communicating soon around this working group. So with that, I think that's all the questions. Peter, did you want to add something, please?
Administrative follow-up. So if you are in the room and did not register for this meeting, please, there's some QR codes. Register. That's way we can get you the PowerPoints for those who want them, and we'll send you a link to where the recording will be.
So yeah, I didn't double check if there were any additional responses from our stakeholders. But if there weren't, then I think we can conclude here. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have more questions, you know how to reach us. Please ask questions anytime. Thank you.
sea en español, C, la Z y C de inglés.